In this video, I'm going to show you how to rebuild a NiCad battery pack for a DS125 Ikelite strobe. This rebuild will allow you to keep your old charger and keep utilizing it, as well as the housing, and you'll get better performance by using new cells with higher capacity. Okay, we're going to start with the old battery pack here that doesn't hold a charge anymore. And you're going to need a soldering iron, like this one here, and 6 sub-C batteries per battery pack that you want to rebuild. Make sure they come from the same place and the same lot so they have the same resistance and everything. And you're going to want the ones with the soldering tabs already spot welded on there. You can see those here. You can see here that this is a 2200 milliamp hour battery, unlike the 1800 milliamp hour batteries that are used by Ikelite to make the original equipment that you're replacing right now. So all these are the same. All these have the same resistance and everything. It's important that they are all bought at the same time. They come with a little red tab that'll have to be taken off, and I'm going to show you how to take that off, and then I'll prep the rest of them in a few minutes. Okay, to get that red shrink wrap off of there, you just take the knife and you slip it right underneath, and it'll slice right nicely, and you give it a little tug and it'll just pull right off, and we'll need to do that for all of them. Okay, and you're also going to need a Phillips screwdriver and a straight edge screwdriver, and you'll also need some solder there, and some soldering paste. You also need some two-part epoxy. This is a two-part epoxy that creates a real cement. It's not like crazy glue or anything like that that needs a perfect join. This creates a real cement that will hold the battery pack together like a piece of plastic. And it's important to get that two-part epoxy to be able to get that really, really hard cement holding power. And that's about it. So I will finish removing the red tabs and be right back. Okay, one of the things I didn't mention is that each one of the little batteries actually comes wrapped in a little paper sleeve. Not all batteries come like this, but these did, so I'll show you how to remove that. And here's what the little sleeves look like, just like so. Okay, in order to remove the sleeve, you just take the knife and you slip it right between the battery and the sleeve, and you just give it a little wiggle, and it'll cut on down. Watch your fingers though, don't cut your fingers. And as you're going on down, it should just release, and then you can just peel it right back. And there you have it. When you get your batteries, make sure you get the ones with the little tabs spot welded to the ends. That way when you solder your batteries together, you're not soldering to the battery heads and heating up the batteries. You're just soldering the little tabs together, and that keeps your batteries in good shape. Okay, we're gonna go and take apart the battery now. If you have this little lock on right here, you have to push that off. Take your little tiny screwdriver, and right in the middle there of the switch, you'll need to back out the screw that's in there. Carefully pop that out. Make sure you unscrew it all the way, because there's a little bit of rubber that it goes through. You don't want to pull that out because it'll make the rubber less tight. So now you should be able to wriggle that out. Yeah, just gently lift that out. And you're going to find a lot of times this little tiny piece of plastic here. That little tiny thing right there. You can see that. That little piece of plastic here is what makes it click into place as you turn the knob around. So that goes right in there. So have a look at that. You see the two little notches here and over here? So that little thing goes right in that notch. So you're going to want to put that in there like that, and then that. And you got to make sure you put it in the right way, like I just didn't do. So there's a little knob on one side. The knob has to face towards the center post when you put that in there. And that's because there are 3 little or 4 little bumps right here, and that little knob clicks into each one of those little divots in the center post, giving you the clicking sound and the kind of precision moving of that little guy. So we'll take this and we'll set that aside. We'll screw and the switch. Now over here, take your flat edge, and I went ahead and marked this one here because this is a different screw than the other two. So you'll need to get your Sharpie out and probably just do a quick mark on that. Just carefully unscrew that, and that comes out. Same for the other two. take those out. All right, put those aside as well. Then the inside should just kind of pop out. Yep, like so. There's your housing, put that aside. And then here you have the battery pack that's in there right now. And it's not actually adhered to anything, it's just kind of held in there by pressure together. So what you'll want to do is just give it a little tug, and you'll see that there's just some wires that are folded a certain way that are kind of holding it in place. So there's a circuit board here, so you want to make sure that you don't mess with that too much. So just pull it away enough so that you can get at the little leads that are in there. You can see that inside there. So you want this contact here and this contact over on this side where those wires are soldered. And what we're going to do is use these needle nose pliers and just pry them back and then off the battery. Just pop them off essentially where they spot weld, and they'll pop right off. So as gently as you can, just grab them and pop them. And oh, yep, got it. And just to straighten everything back out a little bit. And there you have it. Okay, now they're going to start building the battery pack. So using the old one, the purple one there, as a template, we're going to look at how we're going to organize the battery. So keeping an eye on the tabs, we're going to take the top one where it used to be attached to that little circuit board, and we're going to kind of bend it into an S on top so we can solder it back later. You have to look at that. And then we'll take another battery, making sure that we look at the orientation of the batteries so we're flowing to the proper poles. And now the way we're going to join this is to put one tab onto the next tab. And what we do is the one that it's going to, we bend it back on itself. And I'll try to show you how we do that. So essentially you take the tab and you pinch it and you bend it back so it creates like a little sandwich on the other tab, and it just slides right between the two pieces there here. See, it's just bent back on itself, and then you slip it in between there, and then we'll solder it when it goes between there. So it slips right in, see? And then we'll do that all the way around. See that? Okay. Make sure we kind of have a sense of alignment where we're going to go with our next tab. So get things kind of lined up properly. And what we do now is kind of something I didn't mention before, but you take a little bit of painter's tape, and the painter's tape serves to kind of hold the battery together, the orientation of it and everything, makes the soldering a bit easier. So just wrap that around after you get a general idea of how it's supposed to be put together, and that'll hold it good enough, and then just double check it. Alright, now just continuing down along the same path. Get your next battery in line, make sure you got the pole orientation right, check it against the battery pack that you are emulating, fold back the tab to take the other inserted one, and insert the tab into the folded back one, and then slide it up just to check the orientation. Make sure you got the next tab that's on the bottom this time ready to go. So we got this one aligned now. I'm just going to finish putting the tape around it, and there we go. That should hold it in place now. Let's see how that looks. And check the alignment also if you like. You can kind of hold it above the battery just to make sure. I was trying to do it alongside. It won't really work beyond 2 or 3 of them. So you just kind of eyeball it as you look down over the top. Okay, things are looking good. And it's time to solder the first couple in place. So I'll go ahead and use a screwdriver here. my flathead screwdriver, and I'll just grab a little bit of the soldering paste and put that in between the two pieces of the little tab we bent back, in where that little the other tab goes in between, and that'll draw the solder into the joint. And just pull that up a little bit so it's not touching the battery, because I don't want to heat the battery up if at all possible. It's good not to have the battery get hot. So I'll take a little bit of solder, I'll unravel a little bit here, take the soldering iron, and I'll just load a little bead up of solder on the tip. Now, this isn't a typical way of soldering, but it really works for this type of scenario. Then with the tab inserted and a little bit of pressure put on there with that other screwdriver, I just drip that little bit of solder on there and then get everything just a little warm, and it quickly slides right in, and there you go. All set. So, one down. Okay, what I'm going to do here is put some tape on the poles on the top, essentially, of the old batteries, because it does have a little bit of a charge still in there, and if you touch these things incorrectly, it's going to cause a bad discharge, possibly some sparks, maybe a whole lot of heat. Bad things can happen. So to prevent that, I'm just going to put some tape over the top of it, and then I'm going to be able to use it more of a template, so I can essentially look down on top to make sure that everything is aligned a whole lot better than just kind of eyeballing it from the side. So get the rest of that tape on there. And last little bit there, that should probably do it. Make sure that's good. Alright, there we have it. And now I can align right down on top of there to make sure I've got everything just so. Okay, well, now what I'm going to do is use this template to do exactly what I've done with the first three here. And I'm going to do it all the way around to the other side. And when I'm done with that, I'll be back. Okay, so we've got them all done except the very last one here. And I'm going to go ahead and finish that up real quick. That the last one, just like the first one, has one of the little tabs bent up into an S, which is kind of the end point where it attaches to the circuit board. So get that all properly set up. And bend this one back and get ready to insert that. There we go. All right, we'll get that soldered now. Okay, well, there you have it. Soldering's done for the most part. And you can kind of see the semi-finished product. It's held together a little bit by tape. But don't worry about it being perfect. I mean, you get it really close. Here it lines up just about right. And there's pads in the housing that'll take up a little extra space. Okay, now it's time to grab the epoxy, the two-part epoxy. And we're going to go ahead and mix some of that just right here on the back of the case it came in. And we're going to build up a bunch of that in between each of the cells to make sure and hold them all the better in place. Make that battery pack a nice solid one piece. Get the cap back on there. This stuff dries pretty quick, so you got to mix it as soon as you pour it. go. So mix that up. I've got about 5 minutes, I believe, to get everything just perfect before you can't work with it really anymore. So then after you mix it, just scrape off a big bead, and then see if we can get this so you can see it. It's hard, my hand's in the way. But right in between, you can kind of see, just kind of drop the bead right in there and then draw it up, because you're kind of fighting against gravity here a little bit. Make sure everything stays straight. That's it. And then you just gotta let that dry. Okay, I'm back, and it's been about 10 minutes, and it's solid as a rock right now. It's great. So on to the next one. We've got some tape in the way there, because we used some tape to wrap the cells while we were putting together for the soldering. So we gotta use a little knife, just cut it, strip it away, and then just keep going all the way around. Move the tape, strip it away, put the glue in place, and then wait 5 minutes. The key thing here is patience. Take the time that you need for each two cells that you're joining together to wait the 5 or 10 minutes so that that glue hardens. If you do that, you'll have a nice looking outcome. Otherwise, you may turn out with a big mess and have to start over. Okay, now that we have this looking pretty nice, we're going to clean things up by flattening the little tabs on the top. So wherever we made our little bend backwards, it sits up a little bit. And what we're going to use is, I'm going to use my tip of my needle nose pliers, which are flat, and then I'm just going to push down on the tops of those folds, so it pushes down and flattens the whole tab out on the top. That way, just keeping things much more neat and clean, and also it'll fit back in your housing just that much better. So just go around the top. You can see that's better. And then flip it over and do the ones on the bottom. And we're not going to do the ones that are for the terminals where we connect to the circuit board. Those we'll deal with later when we reattach. And again, it's the design's pretty forgiving for those. They can stand out just a little bit even after we finish soldering them to the circuit board. So I'll finish this up. This last couple. And that should do it. A little more there. There we go. Nice. Nice and flat. Nice and flat. Okay. Now these two terminals we're going to join back to the circuit board right here. I'll pull that back over. And now this whole design with the tape, or excuse me, with the soldering and the glue now is pretty forgiving. You can actually bend it a little bit, pull it out a little bit. It'll flex. So now what you want to do is to check how things are going to seat in that housing. And so just give it a little pull where you need to make sure things are spaced properly. Main thing is that you just want to make sure that center post, when it sticks through there, is going to be clear. You don't want the batteries inside the middle of that post. So just make sure you give it a little push and pull where you need to make the minor adjustments, make sure it's going to sit just fine. And that should just about do the trick right there. Looks like it's going to work just fine once we get it seated back in. Okay, we're going to start with the red lead or the positive and attach it back to the circuit board. So check the orientation right here. And remember, you're going to want to twist things around a bit so that it lands just right. Put a little solder paste on there on the contact area of the tab, and then put a little bit on where you're going to solder it to the wire. And then yeah, just right there, just check the orientation and grab yourself some solder. This is the way I like to do it so it doesn't heat up the metal too much. You just grab yourself some solder and load up the tip with a little bead. And then very carefully just touch those together. Make sure to only touch the tab, not the battery. And then touch that bead right to the contact there, where you're trying to join them. And there we go. It's sucked right in there. Nice. And now, if you did your work properly and checking the orientation, you should just give it a little twist and boom, it sits right in there. Looks like let me push that in. Okay, yeah, I bent that a little bit, so I pull that a little apart. There we go. That looks good. So now we're prepared to do the black or negative lead and attach that to the other side. Okay, so we again check our orientation. You want to get things set up so they touch just right. Again, you want it set up so you don't have to touch the battery at all. So get the tabs to line up. Nice. And then we'll put a little soldering paste on there on one side and on the other. There we go. And then we'll grab our soldering iron and solder. And just like before, get ourselves a little bead of solder on the tip of the iron. That should do it. And then touch it to the seam where they meet. And hopefully it'll get just drawn in like before. Very simple. It's not quite going as easy as it was before. Just keep adding a little bit more heat to it. Remember, don't touch the battery. And looks like that might, no. Okay, heat up the solder again. And I think that's got it. Yep, okay, just a little persistence there. All right, looks good. And now you want to just push everything back. You just squish that S tab down there. Good. There it is. And now we'll just get everything set back properly. Push everything down. Make sure the screw holes are exposed properly in between the batteries. Make sure the center post is clear. And we'll also want to check to make sure that that circuit board can lean back up against the batteries flat. And doing that, we need to maybe move a little bit of the wires out of the way. And that looks like we are good. Just to confirm everything's good, I've got Ikelite charger here that we used on the old battery pack. Now everything should work just fine. If I plug this right in here, we should get a solid charge light. And we do. See that? And charging. Very cool. Okay, I guess we're ready to put this back together into the housing in a moment. And then charge it up and actually try it in the strobe. So just make sure you got everything seated in there just right. Make sure the screw holes are in the right place. And take our housing. And that, so you got this circuit board here. You can see that. Make sure I got it in the right place. So there's a circuit board, and then in here you've got these two guides. That circuit board doesn't go on top of the guides, it goes just below them here. Okay, so right there. Not up inside, but below. So that's important. And then this little guy here is the switch that you'll be able to see here. Make sure you don't lose that O-ring inside there either. So just very carefully get that circuit board where it needs to be. And then make sure all the batteries are tucked in nicely. And slowly just, sometimes you'll have to wiggle this a little bit, give it a little push here and there. That should just slide in gently. There, and you'll see the top of that little switch right there go into that hole. So give everything a nice firm push into place. I do notice it's a little out of alignment in there, so I'll just take my screwdriver here, the Phillips head little one, and I'll just go in the center of that and kind of grab just where the screw normally goes. I'll just push this down in there and then adjust to center that just a little bit. That'll make life a little easier to get that aligned. So then we'll take this little guy here. And you don't want to put these screws in first because you might have to make adjustments here. So put this on first. And remember there's that little tiny piece of plastic in there. Make sure that's on there and on there properly so that little bump that's on that piece of plastic is facing towards the post here. So it's facing that way. So then we turn this. You can look inside and kind of see how that switch is setting in this little split here. You just line that up. I'm going to have to line this again. Okay. Naturally it pops out. Okay. So it's about like that. Right there. Squeeze past. And there it goes into place. Now it should click. Yep, clicks into the different positions and it's lined up nicely. So we've got that. And take this little guy, little screw, and screw him back in there. And if I knew this didn't already have some of the O-ring grease on there, I would probably apply a little more to the threads here, and then on that O-ring I would apply a little bit of that O-ring sealant on there as well, and that'll just make sure when everything goes back together that it is indeed watertight. So give that just a snug twist right there. Okay, keep it in the off position. And then lock that so that doesn't wander. So we'll lock that in place. Now we can put the rest of the screws back in here. Start with the different one that we marked. And what you need to do here is there's a lot of play in there, so you kind of just got to drop it straight as you can. And you kind of know when you got it when it doesn't drop all the way down. So we'll see if this grabs. Goes down gently. Yep, there it goes. You just want it snug, you don't want it real tight. There are pads in there that'll squish and keep the batteries nice and snug together. So that's what's going on here as you tighten them up. It's just pushing everything together nice and snug with those pads that are at the bottom of the case here. Okay, so there you have it. And we'll plug this back in to the charger. Good. Okay, looking good. We've got the battery here, the new battery, I should say, that's been rebuilt. Been charging overnight, and it's just now got a float charge going on, so it's pretty much done. And so now we'll just disconnect here, move the charger aside, and now we'll give it a test on the strobe itself. Okay, I'm going to take the diffuser off here, put it in test mode, take the lock off, test, and you can see lights on, and we've got a full fuel gauge here, which is good. Turn that back to off, and then we'll turn it to on. We've got it on a half power flash. Let's fully charged, pretty much just like that. If we go back to the off position and then on, it should discharge the flash. Yep, there we go. Strobe is looking good. I'm going to go to full, and if you watch, so watch how fast this comes up to ready after I go to the on position. And it's ready just like that. That's pretty cool. That means we've got some solid batteries in there with lots of power. So we are good to go. Thanks very much, and good luck with your project.